know what your responsibilities are for the season?
I'm coaching the defense. I'm coaching defensive players.
Are you going to be the defensive coordinator this year?
A fair question that I don't have the answer to.
Got to assume you're coaching special teams this year, yeah?
I'm not going to comment on any coaching situation.
Is the plan for you still to coach safeties again this season?
Well, on defense, offense, special teams, we're all just doing whatever as we're asked.
Do you anticipate sort of filling out the same duties that you did last year?
Honestly, I don't really know.
Will you also be calling plays this year, Joe? Is that part of the plan for you?
Look, I'll tell you directly and honestly right now, nothing's been declared or decided.
Have you been assigned a position group that you'll be coaching?
I've been with the offensive players. I've been over there kind of working with them on the field, specifically kind of spending time with the guys up front with the offensive line.
I'd say all of us are working collectively, all right, as a coaching unit to work with the entire offense.
Have you gotten a sense from Bill that maybe his hands are going to be involved in the offense a little bit more?
Honestly, I don't really know what he's going to do.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. The esteemed Senator Phil A. Perry alongside. Phil, we got 2 days in a row talking to Patriots assistant coaches. Bill got us. He got us. He only had to give us 2 days of this coaches. They did it before any of the mini camps happened, but he got us. We've had a lot of conversation about titles, and we're going to get into the title conversation. But Phil, the bigger issue with me is the unsettled nature of the coaching staff, especially on offense. Titles, schmitles, to some extent. It's grab-assery. But the fact that this team is kind of running an audition on the offensive side of the ball makes my hand shake.
Yeah, I mean, I think titles do matter. I think you feel like they matter too. You run into issues. I think you open yourself up to issues without having a clear pecking order in terms of who the players are supposed to be listening to or how they're supposed to be able to take coaching. Because even at that level, there have been for the Patriots and other organizations as well, I know, disagreements in terms of just things like how certain techniques get coached.
Right.
So without titles, you don't know who you're supposed to be listening to. That I think I think could be an issue. We'll see what happens with this year's staff. But to me, the other one that you point out is just the fact that the play caller role specifically has not yet been defined, according to Joe Judge and Matt Patricia. That's unusual for a spot, Tom, you could argue is the second most important job on the coaching staff.
Here is a question from Karen Garrigian of the Boston Herald to Joe Judge on whether or not he feels as if he's auditioning for the play caller position.
Yeah, I was going to leave it as, do I feel I'm auditioning for it? No, I don't feel that at all. I feel it's my job to come in and be prepared and prepare the players. And when coach makes the decision, he'll tell whoever it's applicable to of what the direction is, and we all go forward. I think the thing that, when you say in terms of an audition or something along that nature, it sounds like it's more of a competition. I think it's more important for all of us to be on the same page because it's a team game and we can all have success together. It's not about who gets to do it. It's about everyone having success together. So I've been part of staffs where I've been a primary signal caller in certain phases. I've been part of staffs where my job is to make sure that, I've got the right personnel in the game. Everyone has a critical job within the game. You need everybody to do it to be successful. So in terms of who does it, to be completely honest with you and very transparent with you, I don't care who does it. I just care that we get it right.
All right, so obviously the role isn't set. It's all a work in progress. And all the people who are involved in trying to do it have never done these jobs solely as their dedicated jobs. We know Joe Judge was a head coach and Matt Patricia was a head coach and Joe was a special teams coordinator and a part-time wideouts coach. And Matt has done some offense. But the upshot is there's a learning curve for them. And there's a learning curve that comes after Josh McDaniels has been the offensive coordinator for about 20 years, give or take. And he's done it at a really high level. So these guys are now going to go in this ramp-up competition audition. That's not an audition and not a competition because Joe doesn't want it to sound like they're competing with each other. But there's still voices. And I don't think that's the best operation
don't know how it could be. Now, I think they luck out in that they have a quarterback who seems mature beyond his years and highly intelligent and has a great grasp of the offense. And if they didn't have that, Tom, if they had one of these other rookie quarterbacks who did not have a great year last year or who barely played last year, then I think you're really asking for trouble. But it can't, I don't know how it helps him. And that to me is, I've talked about this before. I think it's almost right there with winning games in the here and now in 2022 is just making sure your quarterback gets better. That to me is almost as important as winning games, because long-term it's going to mean you win more games if a quarterback can get to a certain level. So to just have any haziness there in terms of how things are going to work, I'm not sure how that puts your quarterback in a position to succeed.
And I think there's also the potential, Phil, for there to be backsliding. Look, everybody is showing up in April and May and June and getting better. Well, the Patriots are going to show up in April, May, and June and sort out a coaching staff. And the quarterback, who had an outstanding first year and largely in credit, not completely in credit, to Josh McDaniels, now has his shepherd is gone. And he's got new shepherds, many of them. I tried to ask Matt Patricia, he understood the question I was driving at, about trying to make sure that you don't overload Mac Jones with information. Here's Matt's answer, and we got to discuss both his and Joe Judge's bedside manner on the other side of this.
I think continuity is a great way to put it. To be honest with you, I think that's something you try to have in general in the game, and certainly with the quarterback. I think trying to make sure that as we are kind of evolving and really starting to get into the stages of working with the players a little bit more, obviously that'll, uptick next week when we can get into OTAs and things like that, but just making sure that the information as a coaching staff that we're putting together and the information that we're, trying to communicate to the players is all the same. And that, it is a philosophy that everybody understands what we're trying to do with a particular play or a particular scheme, something along those lines. So it's great dialect to have in the coaching staff and really to kind of talk about those things and take a look at, what we do. And certainly we've done a lot of things around here for a long time really well. So, that's all the basis of what we do, which is great. And to build on that, but to make sure that that's communicated when we get to that opportunity with the players the right way, and to make sure there is that continuity with everybody. I think you're exactly right. That is huge.
So somehow they can't have a situation where Matt Patricia is talking to Mac Jones about one thing. I mean, so does Joe Judge deal with the footwork, which he talked about for 6 minutes in a question from Chris Gasper? Is he the footwork and mechanics guy, quarterback's coach? And Matt is the offensive coordinator in a way that Josh McDaniels was? Is that how it's going to work? And how do their coaching styles and their verbal styles impact Mac?
Yeah, I mean, that second part is a really interesting one, because people that I know that I've spoken to who know Joe Judge and know him well is that he gives you a lot. He gives you a lot. And we get a lot from him in these media sessions. And I'm sure his bedside manner with us is a little bit different than his players. But will it be too much for instance, a quarterback in his second year, or a second round rookie receiver who's trying to find his legs in the NFL, or a first round rookie guard who's coming from the FCS level? There's a lot of different levels of understanding that somebody like Joe Judge is going to be working with this year, it sounds like. And to be able to make sure that everybody's on the same page is going to be a challenge. I would say this, though. I know they won't tell us what their job titles are.
Yeah.
It did sound for me after 2 days, it sounds like Joe Judge is the quarterback's coach, and it sounds like Matt Patricia is the offensive line coach. We don't know who's calling the plays, and it could be either one of these guys. My guess,
the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, yes. But to me, whoever is going to be calling the plays, the offense is really going to take the shape of, after Bill, it's going to be that person's offense. That's my take on it. I just don't think.
So
I've heard people talk about like.
Give me your appraisal again. So Joe is quarterback's coach.
Yes.
Matt's offensive line.
Yes.
Play caller TBD, or Joe versus Matt?
play caller TBD, Joe versus Matt. My guess would be, and I know Reese said on TV the other day that he thinks Matt Patricia, or he's heard Matt Patricia could, I don't know, I guess have the advantage
caller.
there.
Don't be surprised if it's Matt Patricia.
Right. I would think because of the relationship between the quarterback and the play caller that when in doubt, just make the play caller the quarterback's coach. You know what I mean? Like that's like when Bill O'Brien was quarterback's coach, he was also play caller before he was even named offensive coordinator. Josh McDaniels coached the quarterbacks.
Yeah, offensive line
for 10 years.
Slash play caller. Like Dante, you're going to be play calling?
Well,
I mean, I'm not casting aspersions on Reese's report because Reese is outstanding, but
and Patricia has called some plays before, right? Just on the defensive side.
So if Patricia looks like a kick-ass play caller for Mac and they have good communication, which to me is the very important, somewhat overlooked part of this, is Joe Judge is an absolute waterfall of words and ideas. And he's impassioned and he can get you invigorated, but he speaks very fast, very urgently, and he jumps from topic to topic really fast. And Bill Belichick has always succeeded by giving his teams 3 things to remember and will win the game. And Joe is a waterfall of ideas. Matt can get that way too. Josh could get that way. But they can't have Niagara Falls on both sides coming into either ear. They have to streamline it or the kid's going to have a negative impact on his season. And does Bill realize that? I'm sure there's plenty of people who say, well, Bill's a great coach. But why would he not realize that? Don't you think he's thought of that? Well, don't you think he would have thought that Brian Hoyer and Jarrett Stidham might not have been an answer prior to June 28th, or that Tom Brady might still be able to play? I mean, he's not infallible. Phil, your turn.
No, I think we're probably talking in circles to an extent. To me, the guy who made the most sense to call the plays was Nick Caley, because at least he's been around. He's seen the offense. He's seen Mac Jones in action. Just let him do it. But you have these other 2 guys that have reached higher levels in their professions that Bill Belichick wants to reward, I guess. And so then after that, then it becomes, well, what's the more logical choice? Do you make the play caller the quarterback's coach, which they've done in the past? Or do you let the guy who's called plays in the past, though in a completely different capacity, also call plays, because Joe Judge really never has called plays? Now, I said that to Charlie Weiss, and he said, well, he called the special teams plays. Sorry, that's like 6, got to be, it's punt left or punt right. You know, like, I mean, what are we talking about here? Like, it's a little different. Okay. And Charlie knows that, but he's trying to defend what the team is doing because it's hard to defend. And even people that have seen and watched this team very closely, Dante Scarnecchia was on our air on Early Edition. He said, hey, I know it, it probably looks a little strange to people, and I get that, but, and he's not saying it's a series of bad decisions that have been made to this point, but at least he could acknowledge it's a weird way to go about it. And I think you'd find a lot of people across the league who feel the same way.
So I guess the upshot of it is, do we think Bill Belichick is guilty of somehow some kind of coaching malpractice here because he's not showing a great sense of urgency? Or is this just his great disciplined mind that would stare across the field at Pete Carroll and say, I'm not making a decision until I have to, or need to, or want to? I mean, that's the upshot of all this. And that's the shell game and the chess game that Bill's kind of playing with his coaching staff and Mac Jones, is to say, yeah, I got it. I mean, you guys can flip out about whose title is what. But, coaching a long time, and I could figure this out. Somebody will call a play and maybe we'll send a carrier pigeon.
What's odd about this to me, Tom, is that one of the things that coaches and players alike have always lauded Bill Belichick for is his identification of roles and the specification of jobs that he gives to individuals. He said, do your job. Okay. LeGarrette Blount, like you're going to be our first and second down guy. You're going to run between the tackles and we're not going to throw you the ball ever. Okay. That's your job. You're not going to be at full, whatever. Matt Patricia, you're going to coach this position. Joe Judge, you're going to coach that position. And the fact that it's not happening now with one of the most important jobs in the entire franchise is a departure for him. And so, he may say, well, just because I haven't given it out yet doesn't mean, people by the time the season rolls around won't know what their job specifically is. But I think you could make a good argument, Tom, right? That it would be nice for those individuals to have their roles clearly defined starting now, so that by the time, the reps become more meaningful and you get closer to training camp, then everybody, players and coaches alike, are more comfortable with what everybody's role is.
Right.
To leave that undefined is strange to me.
And there's no, geez, I thought I should have gotten that. I wonder why I didn't get that. Or boy, like Mac Jones should have a huge voice in whoever somehow is involved with this year. It's just, it's strange. And especially when you have two guys who are kind of rehabbing their careers after they left organizations that said, we don't want you around our players anymore, which is the upshot of what happens when you're fired. I mean, Chris Gasper's question about what John Mara had to say about, we don't want, we've done everything we could to screw up Daniel Jones over the last couple of years. And Chris Gasper asked, how do you respond to that, since you were there with Daniel Jones longer than anyone else? It's a perfect question. You get the owner of the team saying that we've screwed up the quarterback, and the head coach was there who was making these decisions about who was around him and likely involved, is now involved with the best young quarterback from the 2021 class. You know what? Let's get off the title and the coaching shit. Let's talk a little football for a quick second here. I asked Steve Belichick about a changing defense and the way the Patriots also, with their players, have to start to figure out exactly what they have. It's a work in progress because of all the new pieces.
Yeah, I don't look at it as developmental from the aspect of like you're starting with nothing and just kind of like see what you get and throw it out there.
Mm-hmm.
But, you brought up an interesting word with the blueprint. So, in terms of building structures, you need a blueprint going in, and you build a structure. And I'm sure certain things happen along the way. I've never really built a house or anything like that. But when I build like maybe my daughter's playhouse, certain obstacles come my way, and you just kind of got to react and adapt to what happens. And that's what we always try and do. We've put a plan in place. We have a foundation, but at the same time, we're always changing and adapting and, expanding what we do. So, we'll try some of that stuff out and see how it looks. And if it looks good, we'll keep going that direction. If it doesn't, then, we'll try and do what we feel is best for the team. So we're just, working through what we got and kind of see how it shakes out. But we absolutely have a plan going forward.
Yeah. I guess what I meant by developmental too is you knew a level, even though Bill talks about establishing levels so often that everybody has to do it. You knew a general level of Kyle Van Noy or a general level of Dante. So there's less known, I guess, as you move forward.
I would agree with that. Yeah. These guys haven't played as much football as those guys. So again, we kind of have to see what we got here, but we got what we got, and we feel good about it. So shoot our shot and see how it goes.
So Phil, after 2 days of questions and answers on some of the personnel and defense, what do you have for a vibe on what's going to happen defensively with the Patriots?
I've got very little vibe. I think it's what it was before we spoke to these guys, because you just don't get a ton, you don't, and it's fine. I'm not sure they know, and they're going to be a game plan defense. That's what they tell you. Got a lot out of Mike Pellegrino the other day when I asked him about cornerback size, and maybe he didn't like that I used the word undersized. I said, you got a bunch of guys that would be considered undersized by most people's standards. Jonathan Jones, Marcus Jones, Jack Jones, Miles Bryant.
Mm-hmm.
Does size matter at the cornerback position, essentially? And he told me the best players would play. So we've got that to chew on now.
Well,
and
the best players are going to play.
The best players are going to play. So we got that answer 5 or 6 times. So that was good. So we got that nailed down. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't think we really got anything. I tried to ask Steve Belichick about the outside linebacker spot, Tom, because that's the one that you and I have talked about. It's been strangely unaddressed this offseason. So they've got to have really high hopes for Ronnie Perkins and or Josh Uche. He did say that he felt like he was expecting Uche to play a really key role for them this year. So I would expect that he and Judon are going to be the starters at outside linebacker, and they think Uche can be a really good player. We just haven't really seen it yet. He was playing, I think he played 6 snaps the second to last game of the year last year, and then 4 snaps in the postseason game or something like. So, with Van Noy gone and Hightower maybe gone, like that's going to be a guy they really have to lean on. And so that'll be one change I think that we see this coming year.
All right. Well, I think next week we will have an opportunity to see a rookie minicamp. I think that's on Thursday of next week, Phil, if I'm not mistaken. But for now, this is let's put a cork in it.
We've got Sorry, did you say rookie minicamp?
Yeah, 26th. Oh, that's an OTA. Never mind.
That's an OTA. Rookie minicamp, I believe, is over. That was last weekend.
Yeah, we didn't get to go to that.
We didn't get to go to that. But yeah, we got the 26th, and then we've got, I believe, early June. Second week in June is mandatory minicamp, and then we've got a couple OTAs sprinkled in on either side of that thing.
All right. Well, there you go. A lot of ambiguity, but you know what? The mystery and the enigmatic nature of it all, it just keeps everybody coming back for more, doesn't it? Hey, appreciate you guys. I hope you have a great rest of the week. Actually, we'll talk to you on Thursday, so I'll do you my goodbyes and tell you to get your air conditioner out because it's going to be in the 90s this weekend. You hear me? 90s. I'm a big long-term forecast. The older you get, once your kids start to get older, you look at long-term forecasts all the time.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. See ya.
Cool.